We are tracking a gladiator that regularly defeats apex predators. Not with blinding speed, not with venom, and definitely not with massive fangs. This creature survives entirely through biological armor and flawless structural geometry. We're talking about a slow-walking, heavy-set pine cone, the porcupine. And to really understand its sheer brilliance, we have to observe it under fire.
So let's look at what makes this animal a true machine of consequence.
Our very first threat emerges right out of the baking mud, and it's engineered for exactly one purpose: total neurological shutdown, the Crimson Viper King. Now, it isn't hunting because it's hungry. It just wants to eliminate an intruder. This snake strikes at a terrifying 20 feet per second. Armed with a 180-degree jaw, dripping with a lethal cocktail of cytotoxins, it aims straight for the eyes. To us, it's a blur, but to the porcupine, it's basically an invitation. The porcupine doesn't run. Actually, it doesn't even turn.
Instead, it executes this move known as the microfinch. In a fraction of a millisecond, a specialized sheet of subcutaneous muscle just fires. We're talking about a fraction of a millimeter of movement here, but it instantly erects a wall of 300 hollow keratin spears. Just like that, the geometry of the fight violently shifts. The physics of the snake's own strike completely betrays it. 3 hollow quills tipped with backward-facing barbs punch directly through the roof of the cobra's mouth. The porcupine doesn't waste an ounce of energy on cruelty. It just stands perfectly still, acting as a machine of pure consequence.
But of course, that's just step one. Now we're multiplying the kill radius. Because in this environment, a single victory rarely buys you peace. The viper's frantic thrashing releases alarm pheromones and the scent of blood straight into the hot wind. And that draws out 5 adult red spitting cobras from the dry scrub. 5 independent venom-injecting systems. The kill radius instantly shrinks down to exactly 2 meters. Now, fighting a single cobra is a duel, but facing 5? That requires a complete tactical paradigm shift to avoid what's essentially a public execution.
So how exactly does the porcupine handle multiple coordinated strike vectors coming from the 12, 6, and 9 o'clock coordinates? Well, when the largest snake feints to expose the porcupine's flank, our guy engages the spinning top maneuver. By rotating at an incredibly high frequency, he mathematically eliminates the very concept of a rear or a flank. When a cobra strikes low at his legs, he doesn't retreat, he makes his tiny, precise micro-adjustment of the hip. The snake's nose just collides with a moving wall of tightly packed, weaponized bone, sending it recoiling in profound confusion.
But then one cobra gets frustrated, right? It abandons the quick strike and retreat tactic and lunges deep, trying to bypass those flexible outer quills. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the porcupine's lethal countermeasure. He instantly halts his spin and executes the reverse slam. He violently backs up, driving his thicker, shorter defensive quills backward, literally pinning the snake's neck muscle directly to its own jaw. In a split second, the attacker is turned into a hostage.
With the hostage pinned, the porcupine brings in the heavy artillery. He swings his short, muscular tail, which is studded with these heavy capsule-like quills like a medieval mace. It connects with the face of the nearest cobra with 50 pounds of sheer structural pressure. To put that in perspective, that blunt force slap shatters the snake's eye socket. Witnessing this absolute brutal display, the remaining 3 cobras realize the math has fundamentally changed. They flatten their hoods, slowly slide backward, and surrender to the wind.
Things are about to escalate though, as we enter the vertical spatial axis.
The victor moves on, but as you know, the savanna doesn't really grant rest. As evening approaches, the shadows stretch to reveal an exponential escalation. A 14-foot titan of the undergrowth rears up, the King Cobra. Now, the previous skirmish, that was a horizontal battle, a ring of fire on the ground. But the King Cobra introduces a terrifying new axis. This is a vertical battle. The king tracks the small, unprotected space right at the base of the porcupine's skull, calculating a top-down execution that uses gravity to massively increase the velocity of his fangs.
The king launches downward, but the porcupine's response is just mechanical perfection. In less than 80 milliseconds, he deploys a forward canopy of spikes, constructing an umbrella over his own face that intercepts the strike literally 2 inches from his skull. Sensing the snake's violent recoil, he anchors his front claws in the dirt, hits the brakes, and reverses his entire body at 12 miles per hour. The rigid defensive quills on his rump drive straight forward into the towering snake's chest. Defeated, the massive titan drags its heavy body back into the shadows. The geometry of defense remains unbroken.
Which brings us to the next phase of this survival masterclass,
The scout's miscalculation. Leaving the dense brush, the tactical environment shifts out to the golden ocean of the open plains. But out here, open space means exposure, and exposure brings a completely different biological weapon into the mix, a solitary adolescent lioness. Now, to her, this slow-walking creature isn't a deadly threat, it's just a toy. She cocks her massive paw, intending to use the standard feline technique of hooking his spine and rolling him over. So, how does the porcupine override this? Well, the exact microsecond her paw strikes down, he executes what's called the counter surge. He braces, surging upward with his massive hind leg muscles, and drives his shoulder spikes straight into her descending paw. Self-threading, microscopic barbs embed directly into the soft webbing of her toe pads. Every single time she steps, it digs deeper. Her hunting instinct is instantly erased by agonizing pain, and she's forced to limp away.
But her retreat sets the stage for our next dynamic. The Spartan Circle holds.
Because that skirmish, yeah, it isn't over. The scout didn't flee to hide, she regrouped. Out of the tall grass, veteran killers emerge. 3 massive, full-grown lionesses deploy a classic triangulation tactic completely designed to panic and isolate the porcupine family unit that is now gathered. And their response is brilliantly engineered. They don't run, they lock down. 6 porcupines move in perfect unison to create a geometric anomaly. The vulnerable juveniles are buried deep in the absolute center, while the adults form a flawless 360-degree outward ring of black and white spikes. They rotate in a synchronized sidestep. There's no rear, there's no flank. Mathematically speaking, there are 0 blind spots. When a lioness tries to crush the center from above, our hero just arches his spine, thrusting a spike deep into her paw. The Spartan Circle holds firm.
Now we've reached the ultimate climax. It's about being the last one standing. The lionesses back away, but once again, the retreat is a lie. They report to the absolute authority of the territory. The horizon darkens as the alpha male arrives, dragging the full weight of the apex hierarchy right behind him. A pride of 10 lions unleashes total, unmitigated war on the family unit. They surround the circle from every point of the compass, attacking in mass, trying to overwhelm the structural defense with sheer physical weight. They claw at the earth, kicking up this claustrophobic, suffocating cloud of red dust. Visibility drops to absolute 0. The lions are just striking blindly into the chaotic mist.
But operating in this sensory deprivation, the defenders don't even need eyes. They can feel the vibrations of the earth right through their claws. Moving as a single, flawless organism, they interlock their quills like a Roman phalanx. When a young lion lunges blindly into the mist, the matriarch whips her heavy tail, ruining the predator's face with a dozen embedded barbs. Seeing his army falter, the alpha male decides he's going to end it. 450 pounds of scar tissue and black-maned aggression charges directly at the hero. He intends to crush the defensive structure using brute force alone. The hero braces for impact. He yields absolutely no ground, and the alpha's chest slams directly into the main battery of the porcupine's defense.
As the dust slowly clears, the massive alpha lion stands perfectly still, a sharp, incredibly deep sting radiating from his sternum. He looks around. 4 of his pride are bleeding in the dirt. So here is the absolutely crucial calculation that happens next. The predatory brain runs the math. He realizes the meal simply isn't worth the medical bill. He issues a low, bitter grunt of surrender. Leave them. And one by one, the 10 lions just melt back into the golden grass.
The siege is finally broken. The Spartan Circle unlinks. The hero rises on shaking legs, his muscles burning with lactic acid. The stark physical toll of the night's battles is super evident. The ground is littered with the broken weapons of his own body. He has literally lost 30% of his biological arsenal today. But he breathed the evening air. He is alive.
We are so often told that in nature, speed kills, power rules, and only the biggest teeth win. But that just isn't always the truth. The porcupine proves that structural perfection can completely break brute force. He's the architect of pain, the geometry of blood. And it leaves us with a pretty profound question to think about. In the relentless theater of survival, do you really need to be the king, or do you just need to be the last one standing?